still alive, and today I'm going to talk about my experience as a first-time Dungeon Master for D&D. Nate, I know you want to be a DM someday, so hopefully this will be helpful to you and maybe some of the people watching. So these are my 7 tips for first-time Dungeon Masters. My first tip is that you don't need some fancy program to be a DM. That was one of the things I was really nervous about going in, having to learn this fancy new program, but I just use a Google Doc and it works great. I keep all the plot points and things I want to have the players maybe do right in there. Is it organized? No, I just throw everything in there. But if I need to find something, I just use Control F and I find it easy. It works great and you really do not need some program to be a DM. My second tip is that you don't need to have your campaign fully planned out from the start. I'll use the campaign I'm DMing right now as an example. The main premise is that a very powerful wizard has had 5 items stolen from him and taken across 5 different dimensions, and he needs a powerful group of adventurers to find them for him. Each dimension is set in a different time period and has some kind of conflict going on that will prevent or distract the players from getting to the item. Now, I don't know what the exact conflict will be in the 4th or 5th dimension that the players will go to, nor do I know all the NPCs that will be in each world, and I don't need to. But what I do know about is a colonial-themed world that the players are in right now. So if you're looking to DM for the first time, you really don't need to know every single intricate detail and every single plot point about your world. I'd say know the main premise, some starter characters, and have a clear plan for your first session. My third tip is that you don't need a vast knowledge of every monster, rule, and spell in D&D. I certainly don't. I don't even own a player's handbook. All of my monsters and items are completely custom, and it's okay to do a campaign completely homebrew. But what should you know? Well, you should have a rough knowledge of the main D&D rules and how the game works. To do this, I would recommend watching through at least one campaign online like Dimension 20 or Critical Role. I personally recommend Fantasy High from Dimension 20. And I would also recommend playing through a few sessions of a campaign yourself. And that's about the experience I have, and I'm DMing for the first time. My fourth tip is to just make stuff up. If something I planned for the session doesn't work out, or the players are moving too fast or too slow, you can just make stuff up to speed them along or slow them down. For example, in our last session, the players were trying to get to the underworld to rescue a fallen player. They reached the gates of the underworld and realized it was too easy. I didn't like reviving a player in the first place, so I wanted to have some kind of challenge to get there, and they'd blown through everything else I'd created way too quickly. So I created something completely new. I had a genie rise up out of the ground and make them play a game show for their lives to enter the underworld. And they loved it. Nate, you know. At least, I hoped you liked it. Hopefully you weren't lying to me. My 5th tip is that you don't need a big group. It's very easy to see an actual play show like Dimension 20 and see 6 players and a Dungeon Master playing an amazing campaign and think you need that many people to just have fun. Every session I play of D&D is the highlight of my week, and I just play with 2 other people. Nate, I play with you and our friend Phil. I'd say 1 DM and 2 players is about the minimum though. Also, a little bonus tip if you want to beef up your party is to, if your players are interested, let them play multiple characters at once. Just make sure the characters are distinct enough and you're not just giving one person 2 turns on basically the same character. Nate, you've done this in both of the campaigns we've played in, and it's been a ton of fun. My 6th takeaway, well, I'm running out of fingers here, is to not expect too much of yourself. You're not going to be an expert DM like Brennan Lee Mulligan or Matthew Mercer right at the start. Just because you're the Dungeon Master doesn't mean you're automatically going to know everything. Often new players will look to the DM for advice on the rules, and it's completely okay for you to do the opposite. Asking an experienced player for help is completely okay. One of the players in our group, Phil, is a very experienced Dungeons & Dragons player, and I'll occasionally look to him for advice on the rules. So don't be afraid to ask for help. My 7th tip/takeaway is to just have fun. Remember, there's no right way to play D&D. The only hard and fast rule is to just have a good time. That's why you're there to play in the first place, remember? I mean, unless one of our viewers is like a competitive D&D player who only plays to win money in tournaments or something. In that case, if you're listening, just ignore that part. And if any of you have any more questions for me beyond these 7 tips, just leave a comment about it. We only have 30 subscribers, it's not like I'm gonna miss it. Anyway, Nate, your question for me last week was, how is Lettuce Pride Week going? Well, a lot of the events haven't happened yet, but Lettuce Idol happened, and it apparently went great, and there were a ton of people in attendance, which is always good to see. Now, my question for you is, what are you most excited for about Halloween? I've got my costume ready. and I assume you'll be going as a Jedi for the 4th year in a row. Alright, that's it for me. I know this was a bit different of a video, but I hope you'll be able to find it helpful. Nate, I'll see you on Monday.